Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? That light might be not good. Sorry, guys, let me just do my adjusting here. Good morning, Josh. Good morning, Matt. How's everybody doing? There's Ben. Let me get you on here, Ben. I'm just rearranging here just a sec. Pardon me. You know, A Coffee with Carla is always the most unprofessional live on Facebook, and that's just how we like it. How's everybody doing? Let's get Ben on here. This will be the slickest time ever adding a... How's everybody on Saturday doing? We'll get Ben on. There he is. Hey, Ben.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Whew, busy day.
Yeah, you were. We did our test run from the car.
Yeah, not suggested. Not proper PPE. No.
It's all good. It's all good. So I'm going to do my sharing thing. So you go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do.
So I am Ben Monsma with Louisville Spray Foam. Had a pretty good history here. Have done just about every position within the company except owner, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But yeah, I am also trying to get my chair set.
It's all good. We just take our time to get set up. We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
While I'm sharing, you get your chair.
So yeah, exactly. So
Now, you sent an agenda with some questions. Do you remember what they all were?
ooh, some statements. Sorry, I'm walking around waiting for my coffee to finish up. I guess first was building science pet peeves,
Right.
and more geared towards, in my mind, just how to talk about proper building science. So, the one pet peeve I have a big issue with is people saying house needs to breathe. And then spray foamers immediately retorting, no, a house doesn't need to breathe. And it's like, it's hard to sit there. You're immediately establishing an argumentative position. That's my pet peeve on that note. So if everybody understands the idea that a house needs to breathe, my position is let's explain how the house needs to breathe, and with spray foam, where and why that changes.
Okay.
So
So I would say too, because what these lives are shared outside of spray foam worldwide, explain more about that, because there are people that are watching that don't know the industry, don't know what that means. So if you can explain that, because this is also a huge learning and education opportunity.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the uphill road that all us spray foamers have to deal with is we find ourselves being the educator more often than not. It's great once it happens because then everybody understands. But the whole idea, everybody says a house needs to breathe, deals with the ventilation of the house. And one step deeper, the moisture management of a house. The traditional way a house breathes is through roof vents and soffit vents. As spray foamers, we obviously are at a crossroads right then and there, because the best way to insulate with spray foam, if it's applicable, is to spray the underside of the roof.
Right.
So you're immediately closing those vents off. My go-to line then is, okay, everybody understands a house needs to breathe, Miss Susie homeowner. We're going to change where that house breathes and get you more control so you can control how the house breathes. What that does...
So what I'll say, I'll ask this in the middle of your sentence. Why
Yeah,
does a house need to breathe?
for moisture management.
Like what? So it'll, if it doesn't breathe, what will happen?
You're causing moisture problems,
Mold.
IDIs. Oh, don't say that word ever. Never.
It's a
I think
swear word.
everybody likes the industry term organic growth,
Oh, is it
which
called
is
organic growth? That's a very nice
well,
way of putting it.
you can have organic growth that is not mold and doesn't
Right.
pose the serious health issues.
Right.
So that's why try not to say mold as much as possible.
Right.
Yeah. So moisture management
Mm-hmm.
is fundamentally, from my understanding, I mean, I'm not a building science pro,
Mm-hmm.
but fundamentally, the biggest issue, and I know somebody passed around the statistic, the leading cause of most major repairs is moisture infiltration, water problems.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's leaky faucet, humidity in the crawl space, humidity in the house that's never talked about,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So that's why a house needs to quote unquote breathe.
Breathe.
And instead of immediately starting by making that uphill battle even bigger,
Mm-hmm.
just acknowledge people understand the idea that it's familiar to them that the phrase a house needs to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once you say, hey, we want the mechanical system to be the lungs in which your house breathes, then people start to open up and you can introduce a lot of other building science to them with very familiar topics.
Right.
So, one of my favorite topics is, your insulation. You don't have to worry about condensation on the underside of the roof because it's like a koozie on a beer.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody drinks, but beer or soda.
Yeah.
And yeah, people understand is once you get a good tight seal around that favorite cold beverage, it doesn't condensate anymore. I mean, they see it every weekend in the summer, if not more often.
Right. Throughout the year.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
familiar analogies is a huge part, and that's where I try to keep it familiar, and that's
Yeah.
why hearing people say, "Oh, you need to be quiet. You need to quit saying a house needs to breathe." It's quit making it harder for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
When I have a competitor come into a potential customer's house before me, and I'll say, well, what did they tell you? Did they talk about, the ventilation and the changing how a house breathes?
Mm-hmm.
So I will purposefully introduce that familiar line to establish, like, I'm not trying to change your world
Right.
necessarily, but the old sayings still have some value, even though they're not explained as well anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, people, like, I think the thing too is people invest, like, their biggest investment in their life is going to be their house. But when it comes to things that they can't see, they want the fancy countertops and they want all the nice, like, that outside stuff that we can all see. But when it comes to the actual importance of how that house is going to function,
Yes.
people don't want to, that's where they start going, I don't want to pay the money, and not realizing what's going to happen down the road.
Yeah, and that's a big issue for us because the market is so hot. We're dealing with custom home builders, and when I say custom for our region, that means stick framing.
Right.
So there's not a lot of prefab stuff going on
Mm-hmm.
with people who are going to spend money on spray foam.
Right.
We're also in lovely Kentucky where we're way behind on all the building codes.
Right.
We're still operating under 2009 energy codes.
Right.
and it just boggles my mind. And
Yeah.
the other guys here in Kentucky, understand that as the same point is everybody thinks R38, fiberglass is going to solve the world's problems.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
you
it's
know,
not.
it's not.
Yeah.
And I don't try to beat around the bush. It's like, yeah, if you're just measuring by R value, that's another pet peeve.
Right.
Just talking R value isn't worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I run the risk of making customers sound a little silly. Good builders of mine, that's a personal relationship point where you can cross that line and mildly insult them and
Yeah.
say, you have to remember. I mean, this is going back to middle school science a lot of times that heat transfers in three ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, convection, conduction, and radiant. Our value only addresses one of them.
Right.
So, and then once you start talking to them as a person and
Mm-hmm.
help people understand, and some people you have to be blunt with, and others, you just friendly reminder like, hey, we got to
Yeah.
remember heat transfers in three ways.
Mm-hmm.
Spray foam addresses really all of them.
Right.
And the biggest one is the air you pay for. And I don't think
Yeah.
as many people talk about, the issues through history. If you're in an older city, these houses were not set up for central air.
Mm-hmm.
So, balloon framed walls, the sacrificial third story attic space with a full staircase going to it, they were designed to draw air into that cellar or basement, typically a limestone block area. That air gets cooled down and then it runs up the plaster, purposefully introducing moisture to the plaster, and you get, basically like your skin, you get that perspiration factor on the back side of the plaster.
Mm-hmm.
And, that cools the house down. It keeps
Right.
that air moving. Um, but once we start introducing air that we're paying for, that's where you get into all the problems.
Right.
You know,
So let me ask you this. How did you get into this industry? How did you get started?
oh gosh.
And how
So
long have you been in the industry?
yeah, so I have not been in the spray foam industry directly that long.
Mm-hmm.
I've been dealing with spray foam for 10 years. I got my start with Habitat for Humanity here in
Oh,
Louisville,
okay.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I have a bachelor's of science, which spent a lot of time, studying pre-med and chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
which was the direction I thought I
Wow.
was going.
Yeah.
Yeah, went to a really great small private college here, with now university, and thought I was going to go pre-med and thought I was going to be a physical therapist.
Oh,
So
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of the background. Both of my parents are in the medical field. One's a psychologist and one is a nurse practitioner. And
Mm-hmm.
so fundamentally in our family, it was do better by other people. Don't just show up and be a number.
Right.
Um, be an advocate for what's going on, right or wrong. And yeah, so I had a really, really bad college sports injury. I was playing Division I lacrosse, traveling all over the country, and yeah, that injury put me out for a year and a half before somebody knew what was going on.
Wow.
So that turned me off pretty quick to our
Mm-hmm.
local medical field. Too many people say, and it happens in the building industry too. Too many people saying, I think I know somebody who could help with that answer. I think this, maybe you should talk to this person, and then it never goes any further.
Right.
So I had a physical therapy teacher that threatened to fail me. Um, it was a year-long course, like 6 hours a week,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to do a end of the year project. And he flat out told me, like, if you don't do this on yourself, I'm going to fail you.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that was pretty blunt. So nobody
Yeah.
was being my advocate but him. And
Wow.
we found a surgeon in Philadelphia. And
Mm-hmm.
after a year and a half, I had surgery. And then, 6 weeks after that surgery, I was cleared to play sports again.
Mm.
But at that
Mm-hmm.
time, I had lost my scholarship and been off the team. So I was
Okay.
kind of lost for a while,
Yeah.
and just knew my personality is a busybody. I want to be physically involved in whatever I do just to keep my mental sanity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got into some construction and physical labor.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's graduated, then signed up with AmeriCorps
Mm-hmm.
to earn some money back against my college debt, and started working with Habitat for Humanity as a professional volunteer.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize when you're an AmeriCorps volunteer, they have the group called the Build Corps, and you can get assigned to all these other, construction groups.
Mm-hmm.
And the trade-off is you learn a lot. You get put in charge of, uh, let me think, every weekend I had at least 15 volunteers that I had to teach them a task.
Oh,
Um,
really? Okay.
yeah, and we were building, really energy efficient houses as part of the charge of the nonprofit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you build an energy efficient house so it's predictable and affordable.
Right.
And so then people can, scoop themselves up and start making progress in life when affordable housing is such a big deal. So we did a lot of spray foam when we were able to. Uh, and then a lot of other times, depending on who was sponsoring the house and how many volunteers we had, we would, Lowe's was a big sponsor, so
Yeah.
we could pick up materials from them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Pallets of painter's caulk was the number
Yeah.
one item, and easy way to keep a volunteer busy is to hand them 2 boxes of painter's caulk and say, go find any gap or crack and seal
Right.
it.
Yeah.
inside painter's caulk, fine.
Yeah.
Outside, we did all the flashing, all the OSB and plywood seams with mastic.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dow is another huge sponsor nationwide for Habitat. So Dow board, foam board from the
Right.
outside, and you're
Mm-hmm.
teaching volunteers the importance and some of the building science behind why are we doing it.
Right.
uh yeah, one of my friends, Melinda, just joined, and she was there with Habitat.
Mm-hmm.
uh, it was pretty wild, and
Yeah, I
so
bet.
it's
How,
it's very hard to
how,
fire a volunteer.
right. How many houses did you do when you were with Habitat?
Habitat as a whole did 25 houses a year here in Louisville.
Oh, okay.
So you got your good turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
We had volunteers doing the foundations. Framing
Mm-hmm.
was done in the shop and then shipped to the site for
Right.
raise the roof. And that's a real fun
Mm-hmm.
time where you have a big party with everybody working, the
Mm-hmm.
families there that you're building the house for. And, by the time you start building a house for these families, they have put in 1,300 hours of sweat equity.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
hogwash on the people who say they get a house for free, because
Right.
they put in a lot of work to do that, and they don't get paid for that sweat equity. Their family doesn't. So you have a family of 6 and everybody is showing up to their neighbors' houses and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
um, and so that's how I got into the heavy duty building science, because we caused a fair amount of problems at the same time. um, just because you have to understand the culture or the person you're building a house for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's things like, how many times are you doing a load of laundry a day? I mean, these are common things that are popping up even like this week. 3 times these topics pop up. how long do you shower for? Do you have a bathroom fan?
Right, and those are
You know,
things people
do
don't
you?
think. You don't think about
Yeah,
those things, right?
and
Like,
they can cause huge problems.
right.
So we were building for some families, and their culture is to boil food almost all day.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
we literally had drywall sagging, and so we built them too tight for what they were.
Got it.
We didn't plan appropriately, so the solution was pretty easy. You
But
know,
but how many people do plan for that appropriately? Probably almost none.
yeah, and that's why as a spray foam company, is you have to be the educator, and
Yeah.
in some cases willing to walk away. Just
Right.
say, cool, I'm glad you're about to spend $10,000 with us, but if you don't understand what we're about to do to your house,
Mm-hmm.
um, either I'm going to have one heck of a waiver for you to sign, or we're
Right.
more often
Or
is just
we're
I'd
gone.
rather not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and builders are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to talk HVAC. HVAC companies around Louisville are
Mm-hmm.
bad. In some sense, because they don't want to talk about it either. And it's too often are we in a race to the bottom without anybody pumping the brakes a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. So
So you got involved in the building science part of it at Habitat, and then that brought you into the spray foam industry.
yeah. So my AmeriCorps term ended. I
Mm-hmm.
worked at Habitat Restore with a couple people, and did that, launched that. That was good. I then got back into remodeling, where energy efficiency was the focus, and it was simple things.
Mm-hmm.
Dense packing walls with cellulose, topping off an attic above and beyond what's required by building code, and more weatherization and sweat equity approach rather than paying for product.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of got old, and I wanted to switch. So uh, Matt, our owner, he laughs at it now, and I do too. He didn't read my resume, because I just started as a grunt.
Yeah.
Was never really well paid, doing remodeling work,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and so I was super happy with $12 an hour.
Right.
Yeah,
It's all
spray
good.
spray foam. I was a grunt,
Yeah.
behind a really good sprayer who's still with us, and I learned a lot
Mm-hmm.
under him. Then I got, my hands dirty, got to work all day. And this was the time that I was with a sponsored cycling team. So it was fine. I
Yeah.
mean, hot attic was fine. And then you go ride your bike for 30 miles. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my wife just joined, which is funny. I didn't know she knew about this. So it's good. And then
Yeah.
had a huge hiccup, looking back. I guess I'm accident prone. Um, Crashed my bicycle, and a lot of people have seen the x-rays in spray foam worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
um, Crashed my bicycle
Is
going about 40 miles an hour.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
And
So I hope everybody's seen Harry Potter and understands his lightning bolt.
yeah.
That's what my collarbone did. And
Ooh,
so
man.
had a surgery for that.
Mm-hmm.
Matt called me. I remember sitting on the couch and told him, like, I'm not going to be at work. I destroyed my collarbone pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
And he was super concerned, which was like the start of the realization, like, I'm in the right spot.
Right.
And, he said, what are you going to do? Oh my gosh. Like, he was super concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for, the obvious reasons, but just because he was caring about me as a person.
As a person, yeah.
Yeah. and I had squirreled a lot of that money away, and so I just kind of took 5 weeks off. Was living pretty meagerly, and recuperated. And then it started with we were picking up business. So this is, let me think, 5 years ago now. So Louisville Spray Foam was picking up pace, and people were calling us more, and Matt was running everything. He was the billing department, answering the phone, running estimates, running job sites. And so it started by, he called me and just said, do you know how to drive a stick shift? And remember, this is shortly after collarbone surgery. I said yes. Didn't want to get in the way of where this was going.
Yeah.
And I show up still in a sling. My right arm, and in America, we drive on the right side of the road and the driver's on the left side of the car. So it was hilarious. I show up and he gave me one heck of a look and was just, oh my gosh, what did I do kind of look.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious. And I said, it's going to be all right. I've done this before when I sprained my shoulder in high school or something. And luckily, Toyotas have an open spot like right on the bottom of the steering wheel. So my arm was in a sling, and I was holding the steering wheel and shifting with my left hand. Yeah, so I'm reaching across my body and shifting, and it was hilarious. And I was running leads with him just because people don't realize even just freeing up that drive time can make you so much more productive.
Right.
So we were driving all over for leads. We were chasing down everything we could. And I say all over. I know guys here on Spray Foam Worldwide drive, 2 hours to run one direction. Yeah.
There's a lot of driving that goes on in this community.
Yeah. So looking back on it, it's kind of hilarious to say, like, we were driving all over the metro Louisville area, putting, I don't know, probably 150 miles, 200 miles on his truck a day.
Yeah.
And so we were sitting in these people's houses talking about spray foam. And he kind of was catching on that I knew how to talk about it.
Right.
And so it's just developed from there. And, I'm a millennial by...
Are you a millennial?
Ish. Yeah.
You're on the edge?
I was born in 86 and raised...
God, you guys all make me feel like a grandma. I graduated high school in 1986.
That's 33 years. Sorry. Don't mean to call you out.
Thank you for that. Oh, my word.
So I know how to work an iPhone, and I know how to take pretty pictures, and then I know how to publish them.
Right.
And it's fun. Instagram, kind of late to the game on Instagram, so it was new.
You do awesome on Instagram, though.
Thank you.
You do very well on Instagram.
Yeah, and so right about that time that I started running leads with Matt, we had redesigned our logo. Like, it was always a joke. It was Louisville Spray Foam always. And then, it was like beer conversation that we looked like little gnomes crawling around in crawl spaces.
Well, I'm going to ask, is Jenna your wife?
Yes.
Because we're supposed to look at the hot gnome. So I was going to say, I assume that's your wife. But I don't want to make any assumptions.
I'm not seeing the comments right now, but yes, she loves, I got a good story on that. She loves to embarrass me. And it's really been a blessing to my personality because she knows I can be way too serious.
Right.
So being able to sit back, who are you going to call Foam Gnomes? Yeah.
Right.
So there's...
It's so catchy, though.
I mean, we were joking about one Halloween rewriting the Ghostbuster song to be the Foam Gnomes. And that's where that comes from, is like, I'm laying in bed, she's reading a book,
That's okay. So you put that in the comments.
I just come up with like changing the lyrics to songs is fun. It's a fun little
it is.
improv thing. And you'd be surprised what you can come up with your favorite songs of just redoing them.
Well, my husband is a person who doesn't know the words to the songs, so then he makes up his own version.
Yes.
And I always say, but actually it's this. And we always are joking back and forth. And he goes, I like my version better.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And it's usually, it's hilarious.
And let me see if I can't see these comments coming up, but that's fine.
Bill Bilbin is saying your social media game is strong. And it is.
Yeah, we kind of learned early on, Google Analytics was gearing up, and Matt, our owner, has a marketing degree from UC Boulder and University of Kentucky.
Right.
And so he knew about it. He knows how to work it really well. Time is always short. So when you have somebody, the hashtags, know the gnomes, the catchy logo, just calling ourselves Louisville Spray Foam immediately kind of organically puts you at the top of Google. It's like alphabetically for the phone book.
Right.
But then, I'm watching who's joining. What's up, Carlos? Carlos is another great foamer here in Louisville. So he probably was spraying the houses while I was at Habitat. People don't realize Louisville's a real local market. All the spray foam guys kind of know each other, and it's been good. So, the guy who was doing spray foam at Habitat introduced me to it and talked to me a bunch about it. And then when I applied to work at their company, he turned me down. And he doesn't remember that, which is funny. And so, if you want to get into something, the persistence and patience, two real hard parts of life in general. Yeah.
Two very hard parts in life. Yes.
And that's why, I was talking to Bill the other week when I was stressed out, and it's Spray Foam Worldwide adds a whole new level of perspective. If you're humble enough to say, I might need a slap in the face to get back on track,
you're going to get it.
You're going to get it.
It's really simply done.
And I find it hilarious. Recently, I've been, chiming in Justin Poole this, Justin Poole that, Ryan Allen. And early on, I thought, as probably many people do, think Justin's a jerk. Right. It's like, because he's a tough talker. He doesn't hold back.
Yep.
Yeah, but met him at SPFA, and it couldn't be any different. I mean, so that's why I pick on my friends. I'm
anxious to meet him in person one day, because I remember in the very beginning of Spray Foam Worldwide, and somebody was, I don't even remember what it was, but somebody kind of got a little heated or nasty with me on there, and that was not happening on his watch. And I messaged him after, and I said, I thank you, but it was okay. And he's like, no, that just doesn't happen. And ever since then, it's kind of, I always tag him in I'll see t-shirts or coffee mugs with the most not good words. And I'm always like, Justin, you need this in your collection.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know.
Well, him and Sean up in Canada.
Yes, Sean
kind of. Tricky last name.
Yes, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right either, but that's what we'll
clue.
Go with.
Combat Foam. That's what I know.
Yeah.
They, everybody has their online persona and then in person. And touching on the social media game, Uh, I consider myself shy. Um, you know,
Really?
yeah, I don't like public speaking. I don't like doing the videos. I get real nervous. I always have.
Wow.
Um,
Because you do it, you wouldn't know.
yeah, yeah,
You
and
do well.
that's why I liked sports where you put a helmet on. Um, you
Mhm.
kind of suit up and put on this persona, and
Right.
it's kind of funny to reference, professional wrestling. You listen to some of
Right.
these hilarious interviews, and
Yeah.
these guys always talk about, it's a persona, it's a persona, it's a persona.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I don't go that far,
Mm-hmm.
probably, of it being fake.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just doesn't feel supernatural. It
Right.
feels like, all right, if I'm gonna do this, you just got to jump.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be uncomfortable. You got to take the
Yeah.
chance. Do multiple takes. Do
Mm-hmm.
silly things.
Yeah.
And that's just how it goes.
Everybody that comes on here usually is so nervous. And I always say to them, it'll be fine. Like you're gonna be fine. I've got you, because they're very nervous. And it's just like you and I are FaceTiming. And it's interesting because if anybody is they're not being themselves or they're being phony, you can pick
Mm-hmm.
that up in 2 seconds. Like you can't, I don't think in this day and age you can be very fake with video or, like what we're doing right now. It comes out. You can pick it up.
Well, and that's kind of like the perfect segue. I think one of the other topics, I had talked about is like salesmanship.
Yes, I have the list here just in case we
Yeah.
forget. But yeah, you said why sales guys get a bad reputation,
Because
money
they're
grab, and how
phony.
to overcome it.
Yeah. A
100%.
lot of people can be real phony. And,
Yeah.
it's, when people are, and I don't know if it's being phony, if it's being misinformed, industry
Mm-hmm.
lack of education. Um, I'm not sure what exactly it is.
Right.
It's easy to sniff out. Customers are super smart. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to acknowledge that to
Yeah.
succeed.
Yes.
Um, and that's not succeed with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody tells you, um, I don't know why anybody would ever tell you to vacuum out the fiberglass if you're going to spray foam the underside of the roof. And that fiberglass is horrendously dirty. Um, that's a punch in my gut. I have a hard time walking away, from a job like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it stinks because,
Yeah.
it does cost money to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, you're an educator. You have to
Right.
understand people need to know this information.
Well, and I think we've talked about that a lot where it's that, those snake oil salesman tactics, they don't work anymore. Like that
Mm,
was, well, it does in some cases, but people pick up on it. They know.
yeah. And
They
then,
know.
um, a lot of times they don't. I mean, how many
Mm-hmm.
times are we seeing on Spray Foam Worldwide,
Yeah.
uh, jobs that if anybody was doing any sort of quality control would have corrected?
Mm-hmm.
It's a botched job, and it becomes a problem for our industry when people, to kind of steal my mentor's line, have no moral compass.
Right.
Uh, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Like I was doing a service this morning. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I got dirty, guys. Surprise,
Yeah.
surprise. Um, but crawling through a low pitch roof, we didn't seal off a bath fan well enough. So a little like fingerling of foam squeezed through and was touching the bath fan blades
Ah.
and making the weirdest
Word.
sound, but it was
Right.
loud. It was
Yeah.
really loud. And so,
Right.
2 hours. Thank you, Brandon. Yeah.
Yep. That's right, Brandon.
Um,
Integrity.
2 hours of sleuthing around in this attic, and I basically uh, disassembled this whole bath fan.
Right.
And I found it.
Yeah.
I called the customer while I was up in the attic to ask her to test it, and it worked. So it's going the extra mile, and I get support within the company for doing that, and that's where we're earning a good reputation.
Well, and I think too, sometimes it comes back to, if there is an error, or if something, something got missed, and you go back to that customer and say, look, we're going to fix that. And, you take ownership, and, it's that's the whole part of moral compass integrity, like own up to that mistake and don't try and like slough it off or not go back. And, it's those all fall into that category.
Yeah, if you try to weasel, people get you pretty quick.
Yeah, they do.
It's kind of, it's interesting how that dynamic is changing so much, and frankly, fast.
Yeah.
It's insane how fast it changes. But yeah, so the salesmanship, integrity, moral compass, educate, follow through as best you can. Yeah, I mean,
and the next point on there is building relationships, building lasting relationships.
Yeah. I went to a good IDI seminar with Ken Allison, who used to work for Demlick. Laughs about the challenges that came around with spray foam through all that time. And his big point was people want to know if something goes wrong, what's going to happen.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest things, is just acknowledging that contracting isn't perfect. Mechanical issues happen. You can trip and put a foot through drywall real quick.
Right.
And knock on wood, like, it doesn't happen more often, than a lot of people think. You kind of build a skill set of walking on rafters, crawling on rafters carefully.
Yeah.
But they want to know, hey, are you going to stand by your actions
right.
and follow through? So building relationships is hard with single homeowners. And that's a big part of our business. That's where we cut our teeth, because as a smaller company, some of the bigger guys around had the builders on lockdown.
Okay.
They were doing good work. They had it all figured out. They had motivated crews. Not that we didn't have motivated crews. It's just we hadn't crossed that threshold.
Right.
So relationships, heck, in your company is probably the most important one. And I'm backed up, lucky to have good relationships in my personal life. And I see a lot of people on here who are not Spray Foam Worldwide related, watching, which is cool.
Yeah.
But those relationships, you got to have all those things to build a good, solid relationship. And it kind of starts with my wife. We learned with each other early on, it's better to stay up late and verbally duke it out without being nasty.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can be, anybody who knows me knows I can be quick-tempered. I can push buttons a little too far. Kevin Bilbin. If Bill's watching. Yeah. And sometimes, I have 3 brothers and we're all close, but with brothers, yeah, you push buttons to the limit. And
right.
Yeah, when you think you have that kind of relationship with essentially strangers, so like Spray Foam Worldwide guys, at SPFA is sometimes you're wrong.
Yep. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been the next Corey peppering.
Yeah.
Tri-State Corey.
Yeah.
And yeah, it could have been real funny.
Yeah.
I'll put it at that
gosh.
because, yeah, I mean, a lot of times with relationships, you're coming across situations where neither person's wrong to see the world in their way.
Right.
And finding that middle ground, finding it's not even always compromise. It's finding the way through an issue with each other. Yeah.
And you can agree to disagree, but you can still like maintain some, there's a level of like dignity. Like everybody can go their separate ways and be okay, but like that takes work. And not everybody can do that.
Yeah, it's very true. In a day and age where everybody's allowed to do whatever they want, and we've lost chivalry.
Right.
Just a common order of politely speaking to other people in different ways. It's hard. I mean, I'm real lucky. My dad's a psychologist, and that was a big thing he always pushed on us as kids. Is partially I agree, partially I don't agree. As a young adult now, is you're completely in control of your emotions.
Right.
And learning that as a hot-tempered young kid is hard.
Super hard.
Yeah.
Especially when you are in the midst of being so angry. How many times I've done it a million times, where somebody will make a comment on a post and you read it and it just like fires you up, and I've typed out a whole big long paragraph and just deleted that whole paragraph.
All. Yep.
Sometimes I have not, and every single time I have not, I regret it, because it's like, oh, they got me. Like, and then I'm mad at myself even more. But yeah,
and that's
a hard thing to check.
Yep. I mean, you'll have customers who just flat out don't see the value in spray foam. It's if they were quippy, like I come back to my wife, she's the fastest quippy person I know. But the analogy of why spray foam your house is because you don't go skiing without a jacket.
Right.
You got to start with some good barriers to the outside world if you're wanting your comfort.
Right.
And some people, they just don't want to hear it. They think of insulation as a commodity and instead of a skill set.
Right.
And that's hard.
Yeah, and you can run across,
it's crazy.
When you're dealing with the general public, you're running across, you just don't even know what you're going to get. Like, that's a whole mixed bag of tricks. That can be very, very hard. Very hard.
And that's, I think too many people try to be salesy instead of just, what are your expectations?
Right.
If people would ask, what are your expectations? It'd cut a lot of time out of the chase. If somebody's going to sit there and tell you, I just want a lower utility bill. Okay. Like, I can look at your house and we can figure that out. If they have horrible allergies, there's a lot of different things you can do. If they just want their one kid's room in the corner of the house that takes all the sun to be cooler, maybe you're not doing the whole house. Right. Maybe you're just doing that room. And I think a lot of people don't consider that. I think a lot of people shoot for the moon, and just because this is what we do, this is our industry, we want to go after everything pie in the sky. Yeah. It's hard, but I mean, we've been back to customers' houses where we've solved one problem, and then we go and solve the next one next year, and it can keep going.
Yeah, for sure it can.
So and I don't think that's a relationship people don't get.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, like when you bring up allergies and different things like that, people don't think about that when they're thinking about insulation.
Um, yeah, yes and no.
You know,
I think
like
yeah.
I don't know that a lot of maybe more do than I am aware of, but yeah, that wouldn't be something I know for me before
Well,
being involved in this industry would not have ever thought of that.
yeah. And we as an industry, carving our path,
Mm-hmm.
it is a better way to build, hands
Mm-hmm.
down. It will always pay for itself when done right.
Mm-hmm.
It costs. I would challenge any spray foamer to develop a relationship with a mortgage broker. It sounds weird, but if you can
Very smart.
justify in your area the costs that are incurred by stepping it up.
Mm-hmm.
I ran the numbers with a mortgage person real quick once, and it was, for another $60 on your mortgage.
Wow.
You can spray foam a whole house. You
Yeah.
can upgrade the HVAC to two stage, and people don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it requires you to slow down.
Right.
And in this day and age, it is hard to get people to slow down.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah, I
too much
agree.
stuff going on.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, the other thing you have on here was the challenges and misconceptions from other trades and code enforcement.
yeah. Again, educate, be an advocate and be an educator. In our industry is one of the biggest things.
Mm-hmm.
I got called out to a remodeler. He's a super, super respected remodeler here in Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Does phenomenal work. Has the relationship game figured out. So he'll go do a bathroom, and then next year he'll do the basement, and then next year he'll do the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got it going.
Yeah.
Um, he had never had an in-depth conversation about just how a house works as a system. And so this year it's been super wet here in Kentucky early on, and then
Mm-hmm.
super hot. So the stack effect going through the house
Right.
is pretty crazy. So
Mm-hmm.
air's escaping through the attic, just being drawn up by breathing. Um, and then it's coming in at the band board, which was the open
Mm.
cavity to the uninsulated ductwork of the HVAC system in the basement.
Right.
So they very quickly had a condensation issue that was unseen. Um, and it was dripping onto the drywall. So you got organic growth.
Right. That organic growth.
It was, I'm not licensed to test for mold. Um, it was nasty growth.
Mm-hmm.
So just everybody can see they don't want that growing in their house, no matter
Right.
what it is. They don't want
Yes.
it. Um, so they were going to remodel the basement, and we had a really good chat. He was spot on. He knows about spray foam.
Mm-hmm.
Knows he wanted the baseboard sprayed. We're probably going to do rock wool in the walls, I hope, to just avoid any future moisture issues, rather than just fiberglass bat.
Mm-hmm.
But then we got to look at the rest of the house, and see what's going on, because that air is getting drawn in for a reason. Uh,
Right.
and it's so you're dealing with the pressure boundaries of a house. And I think a lot of spray foamers don't talk about that enough
Mm-hmm.
until it's too late. Um, they just don't acknowledge the fact that this can change your house for better or worse. You just want, like, I encourage customers to just start measuring the difference. Get a simple $20 humidistat off of Amazon.
Right.
If you notice there's a moisture issue, if you're ahead of it, it's simple fixes.
Right.
So, and with good relationships with HVAC contractors,
Mm-hmm.
you can get them fixed pretty quick
Right.
before they cause a problem
Yeah.
and before they make our industry look bad.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, we know how that goes.
Yeah. So,
how did you, this is part of the next point, but how did you get involved with Worldwide?
uh,
When did you join? And how did you find it?
I mean,
Spray Foam Worldwide.
they can look up the stats real quick. Derek Masden
Yeah.
invited me a while back. I can't remember the circumstances. Again, spray foamers know each other here in town.
Right.
That relationship's important, even within companies. As competitive as we are with each other, and you know, you end up cursing each other and then talking to each other at the same time.
Right.
But he was working for a competitor. Real smart. We got just talking every once in a while, and then he said, "Hey, check out Spray Foam Worldwide. You need to join. Like, you get this industry, even if you don't have the most experience. Like, you seem to understand and care about the trajectory." So I joined, and we started talking, and this was, geez, I think Bill probably knows, 2016, we only had like 2,500 people in the group, and we were super excited about it.
Yeah, it is, Jenna. Jenna,
Yes.
sometimes it's the other husband too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. Thanks, Jenna.
Yeah.
And it's true. Because when somebody's having a bad day, when somebody has a tricky customer, when somebody needs to problem solve, it's the Encyclopedia Britannica now.
Really, yeah. It really is, for sure.
Yeah. And so I got involved, started sharing ideas, tuning the thought process, the making sure the moral compass was kept straight.
Right.
And then Derek and I, he was still working for this other company. We drove down to Mobile, Alabama together.
Wow.
In the Prius, in the Foam Gnome car,
Right.
which was like an episode all on its own. It was really funny because we drove down there, and that's when I met like guys like Josh McCoy and the Leger family and all those guys down south. Some of them I couldn't understand because I'm originally from Michigan. I don't speak Cajun. Come on. And so, but they knew the car, which
Isn't
was
that
hilarious, and everybody kind of recognized the logo. And then they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're Ben!" Like, yeah,
You're a celebrity.
it was funny because we're just kind of like humble pie,
Right.
you know. And it's fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, Derek and I had the road trip of road trips, and we were sitting down with. This was right as Icynene and La Pola merged. We were sitting down at the tables, had a bunch of really good laughs. That was like the Spray Foam Worldwide party that kind of set it out.
Right.
Okay, this is going to be repeatable. This is going to be a value, and it was. So it just had a blast. Yeah.
Are you going this year?
So that's a question mark. Pasadena, I absolutely want to go.
Yeah.
Got some big things going on here in town, and it's hard. It's hard to take a week because I've typically taken a week, and Jenna knows, like, that's kind of my vacation, workcation with the other family.
Yeah.
The mistress that is Spray Foam Worldwide.
Right. Yes.
And she respects it, which that support behind me is awesome. But Pasadena is a different story. You can't drive there easily.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah. You guys could just do your own little road show.
But think about how
Awesome.
many stops could you make between Louisville, Kentucky, and Pasadena, California?
It would be awesome.
Because let me think, you'd hit St. Louis, easy to tag Denver in there, or you go south and then across the top of Texas.
Yeah.
Through Arizona and Nevada,
Right.
if my directions are right. But yeah,
I'll just agree because I don't know. I'm up in Canada. What do I know?
Scott Dodd says nightmare traffic. Yeah, California in general.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we know of anybody spray foaming in Los Angeles?
Well, Rusty is not in Los Angeles, but is he not? Is he close to LA? Rusty,
He's closer to Pasadena.
Is he closer to Pasadena?
Yeah.
California is so big. I'm never sure who's close by who. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know. When you say that, actually, I don't know.
Yep.
Vegas would be a better location.
Yes and no.
That could be dangerous. Just gonna say.
Yeah.
It's dangerous on a good day, but
Yeah.
getting that many people together in Vegas, that would be something.
So yeah, it's Spray Foam Worldwide is the relationships of all relationships.
Yeah.
You can. It's kind of funny. It's the spray foamers Google. You can make and break relationships real quick.
Yeah.
And then, it's just wild. But the relationship side is hard, and you got to be patient on it. Conference in Canada, I would agree.
Get on that, Kerwin. Let's figure it out because I think it would be amazing to do that. We've talked about doing that before, and I think we should be serious about it.
Yeah, where would you go? Where would Spray Foam Worldwide, excuse me, SPFA, have a conference?
It's the Spray Foam
Sorry,
Worldwide
guys.
Conference.
Whoops.
I think
Foot in mouth.
I know for sure in Canada, the province with the most foamers and insulators is Ontario. So
Detroit.
There we go. We'll cross the bridge. We'll just go back and forth.
Yeah. Detroit's Canada. It might as well be.
That's what people say.
Danny Walker.
Yeah.
He's even getting into the colored foam now. Picking which company they use based on the color of their spray foam.
Yeah. Yes. It's but like you're saying, Spray Foam Worldwide, like it really has become that, like you're saying, it's the Google, it's the many things.
So that's kind of crazy. What else do we have on the list?
I think that was it.
Well,
that was it, and we've been on just over an hour already.
Yep.
Can you believe it? It always flies by. So
it was.
So you're married. Do you guys have any kids?
We do not.
You don't have any kids.
Yep.
You're just recently married, right?
No.
Oh, you've been married for a while?
8 years.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought you guys recently got married.
I don't know.
Maybe it's because of your picture. You're wearing like a tux or something. Is that your
Yes. So that was the Building Industry Association of Louisville's holiday party.
Oh, okay.
And so that has been like my local capstone thing. Jenna says we act like we're newlyweds.
Aw, that's awesome.
True.
That's awesome.
But again, kind of like big public event. You're around all of the builders, all of the commercial builders, all of the movers and shakers in our region.
Right.
And I was named as the Emerging Professionals Chairman for this group.
Oh,
and so tuxedo, get fancy. Brandon, it's true. Yeah. If Carla has any cancellations, she's calling me first.
Right.
No.
Yes.
So we went to that big event, and it was awesome. And so, yeah, it's been good. And that Building Industry Association is the spot to be an educator, build those relationships, build some trust in the spray foam industry and in our local industry. So yeah, what'd she say?
Your wife is, you guys have to come because I need to meet her. She is awesome.
Yeah,
Me?
definitely Vancouver is on our list to
Are you guys
visit.
going to come to Vancouver?
Absolutely, at some point.
Yeah. Oh gosh, coming this summer is the best, obviously, but maybe not this summer, but like usually summer is the best. It's been cold. We have not had the nicest, it's been cold and kind of rainy and.
It's too many stories. I mean, the weather doesn't seem to bother us. So it's people, relationships, fun.
Yeah.
You get over it.
Yeah. And I mean,
just make the best of everything.
Yeah. And there's lots to do and lots to see around Vancouver too. So most definitely. And there's a lot of awesome Spray Foam Worldwide people in Vancouver and surrounding areas. So yeah, it would be fun.
Go up there and see, go down and see SPI.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, Washington State.
Rebecca and all them.
Lakewood. Yeah, they're in Lakewood. So yeah, I've been to their facility, and I actually did a little bit of training with them one day.
Woohoo.
It was super fun. So they're a great group of people. So lots of good people there. But is that the coffee mug?
That is the coffee mug.
Let's see it.
It's the older design.
There we go.
Which is a winner.
That would have been $150 mug.
Yeah. Talking about shipping you one.
Yes.
Yeah.
As soon as you said that to me, I was like, oh, no, you're not doing that.
For anybody doing Coffee with Carla, got to remember, ship something 2 weeks in advance. All right?
And send it by carrier pigeon so it doesn't cost $100.
So it was gonna cost me $25 to ship, you a coffee cup.
Yeah.
If I had done it with 8 business days.
Right. Yeah. Because what did it end up? What did you get? It was like $90 or something, wasn't it?
90 was the cheapest, and there was no guarantee it would get to you in time. And then it jumped up to like $150.
It's insane.
Yep.
I'm gonna come up with a different method of shipping from the States to Canada. We'd all make a good pile of money, I think. We could figure that out.
Yeah. It's weird. But yeah, thank you. This has been awesome.
I am so glad you came on. And part of the reason that I wanted you to come on is because of your social media and your videos. I was like, he would be great. And then you asked to come on, and I was like, yeah, sweet.
Yeah. I mean, if I can steal a minute more on this.
Of course you can.
More people should be doing videos for their local area.
1,000,000% agreed.
Publish them on Google. That's one of the biggest things you can do is just show people the ins and outs of the day. And I covered everything, my big personal topics real quick on, a couple of my first videos, but it doesn't stop. And uploading that content in a positive way is a big deal.
Makes it a huge deal.
Yeah. And, Robert Vasquez, to call him out, we got to get some more YouTube Spray Foam Worldwide stuff going on.
Yeah.
And turn Spray Foam Worldwide into the advocate in the insulation world. It is mildly frustrating how we don't organize as well as fiberglass does.
Right.
In pushing codes, pushing recognition. And it's coming down the chain with the building codes, but I mean, like I said, we're on 2009, so we're a long ways off.
Yeah.
So
the more, I agree. And that's always my thing. Get in front of the camera, start, and people are always nervous about that. And it's the more you do it, the easier it gets. But it needs to be done for the industry for sure.
Oh, my first ones are hilarious to look back at. Somebody coined me
Yeah.
the Billy Mays of spray foam. Like, got the
Yeah.
beard going on, like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that works. But you don't have to yell.
Right.
Have a conversation.
Yeah. Yes, I know. I look back at some of the ones I did like in 2015, because I've done it for a while, and it's like, oh God, like
Well, who were
that's
you doing
terrible.
those for? Uh, you
When
were
I was doing them,
you were doing
well,
marketing for some insulation equipment,
yeah,
right? Yep.
we don't want to
So
talk about them, but yes, I
that's okay.
was. They're no
I'm not
longer in
gonna.
business.
Yeah, but it's like you look
Yeah.
at the progression of everything. What Carlos has done for
Hmm.
um, just with the drawings. Like, holy cow!
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I want a coffee book. I want to buy a
Right.
coffee book.
Yeah.
Real bad.
There's so many
So
people in worldwide that have talents outside of what they do every day.
yeah,
Like it's incredible. Like him being an artist, just those drawings, like you're saying, because they're amazing. You
yeah,
know,
and
everybody's.
yeah, we'll drop this bombshell. I finished my university degree with an art major.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I paid a lot of my way through college making coffee cups.
Really?
Yeah, simple, repetitive coffee cups,
Right.
and I would make hundreds of them.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
so that was fun. Yeah. So
Wow.
same repetitious work as spray foam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got to do and do and do.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't realize, kind of the last two sentences. Most people don't realize failing is part of learning.
It
Um,
is.
and if you can shake off some of the emotion of
Yeah.
failing, you'll really sit back and learn something. Uh, and I
Yeah.
think Spray Foam Worldwide bridges that gap
Mm-hmm.
because you can sit on there with some anonymity and
Yeah.
learn.
Right.
But I love the fact that we've had a kind of a resurgence of newcomers speaking up,
Mm-hmm. Well, I
posting
will.
and saying, take it
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, I will say that I probably the post that has stuck out the most to me lately was Jennifer Edwards.
Yes.
And I give her a shout out because I messaged her and I said, "Thank you for that post." I had no clue we had that many women
Yeah.
outside of like marketing and, different things, but that were actually contractors doing what she does.
Yeah.
I'm reading these names going, I've never even seen a comment. So what you're saying is you
Correct.
can be in there and you can be reading and learning and nobody knows who you are.
Yeah. Hashtag Women Wednesdays
Mm-hmm.
needs to be a thing in the
Right?
group.
Yeah, I agree.
They do a heck of a job,
Mm-hmm.
naturally
Yeah.
more detail oriented than us guys.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, there are some who are just A-type personalities
Right.
out of the mix a lot of
Yeah.
times. But women in our industry, in the construction industry as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
don't get enough credit.
Yeah.
And that's, if you jump on Instagram, there's I forgot her name. She works for the building science like
Is
institute,
that
I think.
is
Building
that
Science
Shauna?
Fight Club.
Oh, no, I don't know her.
So Instagram Building Science Fight Club. Um, man, just little nuggets of gold. Oop.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Talking about, yeah. So it's amazing.
I
But
was just when that post came on, I thought, well, okay, there'll be a few that come on there. And then when they started, I was like, who are all these women? Like, where have you been? And I'm
yeah,
so glad they did comment because they do need to be brought to light and they do need to be, you know, that is going to help others in the group as well. It's a
yeah.
different perspective.
It's intimidating The construction field is not always friendly.
Right.
And it's in direct conflict with the fact that we have to earn a living. So it's frustrating for sure. But there we go, Carla. We got to get Women Wednesdays in Spray Foam Worldwide.
We're going to get that going. Jennifer Edwards has started it, and we're going to finish it.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have to do a little like shout out to one of them every week, maybe.
Well, it's people got to jump on. I'd like to see more videos, even if you're just going to publish them to our industry closed group. Yeah. I think people would be shocked by how much support there is.
Yeah.
You know, I talked to Danny Walker, and he's another, like, you're so shy. You feel like you are so shy that when you jump on and do it, you turn into a superhero.
Right.
And I think there are so many people who do that, who can do that, and just don't take the first step.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's something like Danny Walker does it amazing. People need a Danny Walker. Like when people are talking about that, I'm like, everybody needs a Danny Walker in their team, because he is the thing that he brings to the table is not only what he does, but it is the videos. It is like he's a marketing person as well as, you know, and it's invaluable what he's doing.
And there's a position for that in every company.
Yep.
And again, the relationships within your own company, people need to politely recognize, you know, your assets that you bring to the table. Yeah. I'd like to see more videos.
Yeah, I think everybody can contribute to that. And it's like you're saying, even if it's just into that group, then you're starting to get a little bit more comfortable by you're posting it in there. You're going to get critiqued, probably, you know, however that goes. It can go one of two ways.
Yeah.
For the most part, hopefully everybody's kind, but you know.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's okay. It's constructive criticism is okay.
Sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Done right. There's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it.
Yeah. And people don't realize, I think in certain cases, like, spray foam doesn't have to be pretty.
Right.
It needs to be consistent. And that's Derek Masden, like, hammered that in my head early on. It has to be effective. It has to be consistent, and your job site should be clean.
Right.
And that's what people are going to understand the best. Yeah, you should strive for other reasons to make pretty spray foam, because you're not wasting material. But
yeah,
you know, I'd I'd like to have a day on Spray Foam Worldwide where we post our like spray day failures.
Yes.
Yeah, and
because that's where so many people will jump on the bandwagon of, like, it gets into that whole, like, just tearing that person down. And it's like, okay, well, let's see your post. Like, when did you start? How did it look? Nobody's looked good, probably, when they started, right? Like, everybody had to start somewhere. And it's that constructive criticism done right. Don't, like, bash somebody, because what'll happen is they'll never post again. They'll never look for advice. They'll be scared to do that because they just think they're, you know, why would they bother? Yeah. And it's doing a disservice to everybody.
Well, and that's the other part of being a, you know, educator in this industry and in life, is being a good teacher.
Exactly.
You know, everybody has had a good teacher or a good role model that doesn't shy away from correcting them, but does say, hey, this is what you should strive for. This is how you can make it better.
Right. Yeah, so, I agree.
Yep.
Well, on that note, I'll let you get
Gotta
back to
go.
your day. I have a wedding to go to today,
Exactly.
so I've got a really good friend getting married today, so very excited about
Congrats.
that. But yeah, it's going to be awesome. So all of us class of 86 people will be together. We'll try and stay up past 9.
Oh, wow.
Because we're the grannies of the group.
Now so it's 9 East Coast time. That'll be easy.
Well, yes, we'll go with East Coast time. We can all be in bed at 6.
That's
Thank
funny.
you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I am and you're welcome back anytime. And
have a great day. I'd love to.
Yeah, you come back anytime. We'll talk about that later, but hopefully I'll get to meet you face to face in Pasadena.
That would be great, Carla. Thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for joining in, and we'll go back and go through the comments and answer them. And thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you all next week.
All right. Bye-bye.